I'm at Talisker, famous Talisker, famous for its whiskey on the Isle of Skye, although the distillery is actually up the road in Carbost, a few miles that way. It's not actually down here at Talisker Bay, which is where I am today. I am going up just a wee hill, which is supposedly one of the best examples of columnar, I don't know how you say it, basalt columns, volcanic basalt columns. It's called, I don't know the pronunciation, is it Preshal Beg? P-R-E-S-H-A-L. Preshal, I'm assuming. That there is Preshal Moor. Two peaks. That one, Preshal Moor, and Preshal Beg's over there somewhere. There's our hill over there, but I'm not going to just cut straight for it. I'm going to follow the burn up and come at it from the side. Now these are a bit more pronounced. So you can clearly see how straight these lines are on these columns. You get a better view of it from afar, but now we're actually here. But it has very natural origins. It's volcanic rock, it's a type of basalt. And this particular one, I believe, was a lava flow. When you have the molten rock below the ground, the liquid rock, it's called magma, and if it stays below the surface and cools and solidifies, it's still referred to as magma, and it cools into rock. But if it gets to the surface and flows over the surface or explodes out, then it's called lava. You don't get lava underground, you only get magma. 60 million years ago, there was a lot of volcanic activity in this part of the world. All the continental plates, it was a time when they're all pulling apart, and the plates, was it with Greenland or North America, I'm not sure, were pulling away from Europe. And it was, when you pull a flat surface, obviously it's going to fracture and break, and the Earth's surface is no different. And so cracks appeared and started spewing out lots of lava, and there was lots of volcanic activity. And this is the same volcanic activity which has sculpted the Kulin here as well. But to start off with, this has been on top of the ground, this lava, these layers of lava have spewed out across the land, and then what does lava do when it reaches the surface? It cools. What I really need to be able to illustrate the process of cooling and contraction is a top view of one of these columns, so we can see what's going on from above. And just so happens, here's one I prepared earlier. Perfect column here. This is obviously a chunk that's fallen off somewhere from here. But if you can imagine, this is the top of the column, it's lying on its side. You can see how it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. It's a hexagon. But if you can imagine the top of the lava, the very surface of the lava where it's in contact with the air, that's where it's going to cool first. And that gets hard first, and as it does so, when it gets cool, it contracts. It cools evenly across the whole surface, and so you get cracks appearing everywhere. And as these cracks appear, they start pulling away from each other, and when it does it evenly across the surface and it's all cooling at the same rate, then you tend to get these funny shapes, which are entirely natural. Slowly the rest of the lava cools as well, and as it does so, this crack works its way all the way down as all the rock cools and solidifies. But it's not just all happening on one column. You can imagine it's happening across the whole surface of the lava. So there's cracks everywhere, all working their way down, and that's what's forming all these columns. So that's why the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, you look at it now and you look down from above and you can see, I think it's 40,000 of these all interlinked together, and you can walk on top of them. It is just like on a lake bed, when a lake or a reservoir dries out, and as the parched ground, the bed of the lake gets very, very dry under it and gets baked under a sun, you start to see those cracks appearing, and it sometimes looks very, very even, like little saucer shaped cracks appearing, and slowly these cracks pull apart from each other. It's exactly the same process with this, what happens at the top. And because there are cracks forming, it means that all of this rock here is solid as rock is. This type of formation, this basalt column formations, are very, very susceptible to weathering, and you can see how this one in particular is being forced apart, not least because things are growing in the cracks in between and that's forcing it open, and this one is definitely leaning outwards and there's rocks starting to fall down. So all these will go eventually, and indeed that's what's happened here. This one you can see sheared off flat along here, because while they're easily fractured along the lines of the cracks that form the columns, they also easily fracture widthways as well, and that's why this has fallen off here. And that's what our one down here is. This one, see another one there. That's what all of these are. Lots of shapes everywhere. Sometimes you definitely need a longer view to get a sense of something. And that's exactly what we're going to get, because the weather's cleared. See sea, and now getting a wonderful view of this rather spectacular flank of Preshal Beg, because now it's really, really obvious just how much like columns these are, and you can see where it's lighter. That's where it's broken away more recently, which, you know, suggests that none of this is a done deal. It's still going on, and that's what all this debris here is. You can see how all these boulders are full of straight lines. This is all the broken columns that have come off. Isn't that spectacular? Well, these are certainly the best I've seen yet. They are perfect columns, and just look at this. It's almost tempting to try and push it over, but I'm sure I couldn't. Of course I couldn't, and I'm not going to try, but it's that kid in you, I suppose, that sort of sees something like that and wants to try. But it's a marvel, so I will leave it alone. How wonderful is that? And here we have another one slowly being prized away. This is quite wonderful. I'm really rather enjoying myself. Oh, I'm getting ideas seeing now. If I could, you know, if I could, I'd take 4 of these home right now if I could, and put them around a table. Like quite bizarre chairs. But, yeah. Perfect. Of course, my table at home wouldn't have a view quite as good as this one. But yeah, I'd take them home with me if I could. Oh, now these are perfect for showing you how it looks like from above. There you go, you can see perfectly here. These are the tops of columns, and you can see how they all kind of just fit together. And like I say, if you can imagine, this was all joined up at one point. It would have just been one great big top skin of lava, but then as it cools, cracks form and they start to pull away from one another, and it just happens to form these geometric shapes. I think I'll make that do for columns today, and basalt columnar joints, whatever it's called. Columns, basalt columns. I think I'll make that do. I think you've had enough. Right, I'll sit down on these basalt columns. Sorry, mention them again. I'm done with basalt columns now, so I promise, won't mention them again. have my lunch, and then head down to here, take a look at this sea stack, and then head all the way along, back along. These are cliffs here, and the beach, Talisker Bay, is there, and the car's just up there somewhere. And then that'll be me done. Ooh, what about that? This is why coastal walking is so attractive. It can be every bit as breathtaking, as steep, as impressive as being out in the hills. I mean, cliffs like this are every bit the equal of anything you'll find in the hills. It's wonderful. And that's Preshal Beg just up there with all the Ooh, who lives in a hole like this? Rabbits, presumably? But that's bedrock there. It's all that volcanic rock here, so there's not much soil to play with. So not very deep down. I don't know how high this cliff is, but this is the highest point, I think, of the walk back to Talisker. Certainly feels that way with my head in the clouds. I can't actually see the sea now, I'm so high up. I could be on a fairly broad ridge well inland as far as I'd know, but I can just hear this roar down somewhere down there, so I can hear the sea, I just can't see it. I'm sure it must be down there somewhere. Oh, yes. Well, there are shapes looming out and the camera's having trouble focusing, but that's the coast down there. There's a big cliff there in the murk. Brightening up. It's funny, the mist sort of hugging the cliff over there where I was. But annoyingly, it looks like it's all coming out of a cloud now. Oh yes. Journey's end, pretty much. Talisker Bay is just over there. Is that a golden eagle? That was a crow or a raven chasing some big bird. I thought it might have been a golden eagle for a moment. It was too quick to see. I'd have to have a look at the footage when I get home, but I thought it looked big. Don't think it was a buzzard. Could have been an eagle. Just didn't hang around long enough to see I ran back up the hill, but it was gone. May I talk about columns one last time? There's more up here, but instead of falling away individually, these ones, instead of falling away individually, they've fallen in great big clumps. These great big blocks. You can see how there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bumps, and all these as well. And these ones, great big chunks of columns all come away from this rock. It's funny seeing things like that, where obviously that's where the cliff used to be, but then you see things like this crack, lines of weakness, and then the sea's pounding all the time, and eventually something has to give. Funny, it looks quite innocuous, and I don't know if that's what it is. I don't know if this is just sort of a line of weakness in this whole hillside. I don't see why not. Food for thought. Anyway, it's Talisker Bay. There's over there a wonderful, wonderful big waterfall. And the car's parked just where those cottages are over there. Oh, the sad reality of beaches in this country, or indeed anywhere in the world, I suppose. Just so much crap blown in from God knows where, all over the place, all over the world. Anyway, that's me done. What fun! I've really enjoyed that. Bit of geology, get my geeky geologist out and let loose on all those columns. Possible eagle sighting, wonderful coastal walk, stupendous cliffs, and I'm only a 15-minute drive from the cottage I've rented, so a cup of tea and cake is not far away.